Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 6 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Justin Myers with you. College football playoff rankings are here. No major changes in the top six. Oregon remains sitting at number 6, the highest ranked of the one-loss teams. Washington remains at 5, the lowest ranked of the undefeated teams. Make that make sense for me. Oregon State comes in at number 12. Utah at number 18. And Arizona rounds out the Pac-12 at number 21. Portland Trail Blazers return to action tonight, squaring off with the Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center. No Scoot Henderson for the Blazers tonight, along with no Anthony Simons and no Robert Williams. Tip-off is set for 7 o'clock. Pre-game coverage starts right here on 620 Rip City Radio. Tyson Alger, friend of the program from the I-5 corridor, joins us in hour number 3. But is Harbaugh on the way to getting suspended? How does that affect the college football playoff rankings? Eye tests versus resumes and so much more. RCM starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Wednesday. It is RCM. I'm your host, Justin Myers, super producer Brendan, safely partitioned. On the other side of the glass, thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late, however you are rolling on this particular Wednesday. We got a lot of stuff to dive into on the big show. It's getting tense in the college football playoff room. Former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy showing the SEC arrogance that we all knew was coming, right? We, like Charlie Brown with the football, we all thought, you know what, maybe it's going to be different this time. Maybe it's going to be different this time. Maybe, finally, after all these years and with the impending doom of the Pac-12 conference, maybe finally, after all these years, we're going to get some respect, right? We're going to be like LeBron in the bubble. I want my damn respect. It's about time. And it's like, oh, everybody respects you, LeBron. But nobody respects the Pac-12. And it seemed as though in September and in October, it was like, all right, here we go. SEC's a little down. Yeah, Georgia's still a wagon, but they ain't played nobody, Paul. Alabama loses at home to Texas. And for the first time ever, it doesn't look like the SEC is the most dominant conference in all of college football. The Big Ten is a two-horse race, which maybe Penn State gets back in it this weekend with a game against Michigan. But Penn State, but the Big Ten, they're a two-horse race. It's a two-horse race in the Big 12 as well with Texas and Oklahoma. And sure, there's Kansas State, and sure, there's Kansas, and they're having some fun. And Oklahoma State with the night, but it looked like for sure it's just going to be Texas and Oklahoma again. Now it's almost looking like it is a one-horse race, a king of Texas atop the Big 12. And then there is the Pac-12, which we've talked about all year long. Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah, Arizona, and I know that USC just took a loss at home. I know that USC took a loss to Notre Dame. And I know that USC is essentially on the outside looking in, but Trojans still have Caleb Williams on their roster. That's still a formidable opponent. UCLA, that's still a team that you don't play your best football, they can beat you. But again, now we are back to uniforms are magic, and the SEC is the king, and they duped us again. How did they do it again? Because there we are on Tuesday watching the college football playoff rankings, and there's old Greg McElroy, former quarterback at out. Like, well, I mean, in the SEC, we don't have to play Cal, and it's like, really? So we're gonna dive into that. Coming up in about 15 minutes. What should the criteria be? What like if you were to restart this whole thing, because that's been, I think, college football's biggest problem, right? Is it's never been perfect, right? Because college football started before planes were a thing. So like that, like how did we get here? So it goes, we started before planes were a thing. So you just play your conference and then you wait a month and play on New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl. Yeah, because they had to take a train. To get from Columbus, Ohio to Pasadena, it took a while.
Well, so Justin,
It took
the
a
most
while.
famous Rose Bowl that Oregon State won when it was relocated from California.
Yeah, because it was right after Pearl Harbor.
Yes,
and they were very worried about
And rightfully-
mainland attacks. And
That makes sense, being on the West Coast.
I mean, that's factored into this as well.
But I'm just, like, honestly, Justin, like, curious question for you because no one's ever talked about it. How long did it take Oregon State to get on the train in Albany and make it to Durham, North Carolina?
Do you think they were in Albany?
Oh, I guarantee.
Do you think there was a train stop in Albany back then? Back in
Probably
1941?
had to be one in Albany and not Corvallis, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
How did they get from Corvallis to Albany?
That's also a fantastic.
I guess it was the 40s. They drove a car.
I mean,
probably,
it's true.
There were cars back then.
It was.
There
the
were
40s.
planes back then too, but I mean, they were fighting in the war.
Yeah, like
so
very
it wasn't-
different.
It was
very,
like you
very
hopped on
different.
Pan Am.
But no, like I remember seeing old pictures, Justin, where people were waving goodbye to Oregon State as they get on the train to that game, and I'm like, wait, they took a train? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, they did.
anyway, quick
What's
aside.
What's
but
like 2 years earlier, right? The Tall Furs, the Oregon basketball team.
there you go.
I believe they played that Final Four. I think that was in Chicago, and it was like, yeah, they took the train. It took a while. Like
it
what?
took a while.
So, like that, like it's never been perfect because college football existed 150 some years ago.
Yeah, life was probably a little different with the 38-39 Oregon Webfoots men's basketball
A
team.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
To get on a train and, hit every stop on Route 66. Route 66 probably didn't even exist.
You're playing teams like Signal Oil in the preseason.
Is that on the schedule?
Yes. It was an oil company.
It was like, all right, Signal Oil they say they got 6 guys that can play.
Yeah.
All right, let's put them on the schedule. Well, that's like
That's nuts.
like that's why all these national championships. Friend of the program and my old partner down in Eugene, Steve Tannen, he brought up something yesterday on Twitter that it sounds harsh, but it's actually true. It's like pre-1998, nobody won the national title. Like nobody won it. You were awarded it. It was like, we believe, all of us, we believe that you are the national champion. Here you go. Here's your trophy. You didn't win it.
And everyone didn't even agree on it.
No.
Right? It was like AP.
Even if it was unanimous, you still didn't win it. It was awarded to you. 98 was the first year ever it was won. And even then there were flaws. And so, like, these are the flaws that brought us to last night, which is we don't know how to evaluate. We just don't. It is an imperfect science, and it's never going to be perfect. Is it eye test? What's the eye test, right? Because there's some convenient bad performances that are being omitted from the eye test. Is it resume? Well, resumes in college football change because I could venture to say that the Colorado team that Oregon played back in September, very different Colorado team that Oregon State played on Saturday.
Oh, 100%.
This is a very different
and
team.
the thing that bothers me the most, Justin, and you teased it earlier, we'll get into what we hear from Greg McElroy, which just absolutely lit me on fire last night watching these college football.
You walked in today fired up.
I
were
was.
ready. You were ready for McElroy. You were like, he wouldn't even sniff the field in this era of college football, which is probably right.
I'm just saying, like, Greg McElroy, he came out and just, like, objectively was like, for lack of better terms, yeah, Oregon beat Utah, but that's not really a good win, and we don't know how we feel. Like, it just was so, like, negative,
Brendan, it's like I said right at the beginning of the segment. We are Charlie Brown again
It's
with
true.
the football.
It's
And
true.
we believed. They suckered us in, right? They lured us in.
Hey, even the friends of our program, like Adam Rittenberg said a couple weeks ago, the Heisman and maybe CFP would run through the Pac-12.
Through the Pac-12, run through Vegas. They lure us in, and they finally did it. And they're like, and you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I trust them. And it's like, guys, I think the SEC honks at ESPN are turning the corner. I think they are finally seeing the light. Maybe they're looking at the Pac-12 with 20/20 vision because the conference is going kaput in about a month. Like maybe it's, and then all of a sudden, Cal, that's cute. Cute little win, Oregon. Cal. Like, football up, Charlie Brown, kick,
And
on
also,
our backs. It's like we got duped again.
Oh, 100%.
We got duped again.
And also, Justin, they made sure to mention last night, too, during the rankings, and I'm curious if you caught this. Who has the best win in college football?
See, now that's a good argument. I believe that it is a two-horse race. I believe that it is either Washington's win over Oregon, which by the numbers,
that's where I would go. Yeah.
By the numbers, Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That's a very good win. It's a very good win.
And Texas, what, 8? There's not a lot of respect for the. I
believe Texas is 7 and Alabama's 8.
Okay, 7
because the head-to-head, same record, all that stuff. But so that's the argument, right? Is
interesting.
Because Washington got that win at home, Texas went to Alabama and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So I can see an argument for either or. But I'll tell you what, Florida State doesn't have a win anywhere close to Washington's win. Michigan.
LSU, is that decent for Florida State, or you not like that win?
Not better than a win against Oregon.
No, just in comparison.
That's their best win, yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to say nobody, it's Michigan. They've played nobody.
Yeah, also.
Till this weekend.
Georgia. Who is Georgia's best win is Missouri.
They're not terrible. Uniforms are magic, maybe a little bit there.
Okay. All right. Slaughter Sportsbook.
Oh,
Let's start the Slaughter Sportsbook. Neutral field, Missouri, Oregon. What's the spread? Neutral field, Missouri playing Oregon.
Oregon minus 12?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That's such a better win for Washington than Georgia's win over Missouri. I'm not poo-pooing it like they were pooing Cal. I'm just saying.
They actively were. They said they weren't, but they were poo-pooing Cal, Justin. And Justin Wilcox should be up in arms this morning.
Yeah, I don't know if he was paying attention. Anywho.
You don't think he's wired into the playoff rankings? Oh.
I don't. What do you think coaches, like, obviously.
I think he's definitely wired in, Justin.
Like Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Jim Harbaugh, Norvell, DeBoer, Lanning, Saban, Sarkisian, right? Those guys, they all, like, it matters, right? Is anybody else even, like, we're down to about 8 teams, right? I don't know is there another team after that even has a chance? Ole Miss?
Yes, because if Penn State beat Michigan and then won out and had one loss, they probably would make it.
Franklin and then also Kiffin. Because if Ole Miss beats Georgia this weekend, not saying they will, but if Ole Miss beats Georgia this weekend, look out for the Rebels. Do you know what I mean?
If Louisville were to win out, Justin, and beat Florida State in the ACC championship game, where would they rank in this mix? Could they get in?
Who's Louisville's loss?
Pitt.
Pitt. Yeah, no, you're out.
Justin, you're right. I have that right? I think.
Yeah, because for Louisville to get in at one loss with a loss to Pitt, that would mean a lot of teams would have to take a second loss because they're one loss Alabama, one loss Texas, one loss Oregon,
and blown out by Pitt too.
Yeah.
They have Miami, Kentucky left on the schedule, and Virginia, so I doubt that's going to happen, but you never know. So, and they'll play Florida State, obviously, in that championship game, so.
But it's here we go again, right? Just when we thought the Pac-12, they were going to put some respect on our name.
No.
No. It didn't even get to Thanksgiving. Didn't even get we were like, hey, it's September. Like, hey, I think they like us. I think the college football world is starting to like some West Coast football. And then we get to October. Hey, guys, they haven't kicked us out of the party yet. Like, I think we're in.
You like the non-frat guys getting into the party,
it's
Justin,
a lot
and you're
like that.
Hey, at the door, I know Joey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, come on in, guys.
And then all of a sudden,
who are you guys with?
Boom.
Oh, we're with Joey. There's no
Joey. Who's Joey? Who? I don't know.
I can't say that ever happened to me, Justin, but I didn't go to too many.
It's happened to me.
I didn't
and
go
it
to
has
many.
I
didn't go to many frat parties. I stuck to the house parties, but
it has led to some physical altercations. Let's just say that, right? It's like, oh, because you always get some D-bag, popped collar Kyle. No offense to any Kyles out there, but they're all Kyles. It's some D-bag Kyle who's had one too many jungle juices and is like, Who are you? Why are you here? Who invited you? It's like, dude.
Especially if you've got girls next to you, too.
Oh, 100%.
Then you're really going to start getting looks.
Hey, who let you in? Like, dude, Joe.
We don't have a Joe.
They don't have a Joe who? I don't know. Joe. He said we're cool. What did you bring? It's like,
Where you got to have a rack. Get ready.
Yeah, out. And then it's like, throw me out then. And then it's like, now it's going to get physical. I can't say I've had that happen a couple times.
I never had that. Like, there were moments at house parties, but yeah, but it's like.
Oh, you think you're better than me? Oh, yeah. Let's go. Throw me out then. Let's do it.
Good times.
You want to throw me out? And it's like, then there's always this one big dude who's like, because all the frat people are all smart. They have one football player like that they know, and they take care of it. And it's like, all right,
it's like we got connections.
Here comes some, third,
and also Justin.
Here comes some third string preferred walk on defensive lineman, but he's still huge.
And
he played at Sprague or something, and it's like, here we go.
And if you could take an over under on how many times you'd hear Kyle say "my brothers," you probably would be.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on that, but yeah, essentially the SEC frat bros.
Pretty much.
Greg McElroy is looking at the Pac-12, going like, wait. How did you guys get here? I looked at your resume. I don't know you. All right, more on that. Also, I was thinking about this with regard to potential bowl matchups. Now, I realize we're all college football playoff obsessed and Pac-12 championship obsessed around here, but there are some interesting bowl matchups where if you because of the transfer portal and the coaching carousel, we could find ourselves in some fascinating soap opera matchups. We'll talk about some of those and why the Greg McElroys of the world just will never let us have our fun. That's next on 620 Rip City Radio. I am no stranger to ridiculous debate and ridiculous arguments. As a matter of fact, a long time ago, way in the Wayback Machine, on my former radio show that I used to host down in Eugene, I would have a theme, Ridiculous Argument Wednesday. Turns out I was really young, and I was like, give me something to just eat up a day of topics. But, like, it's something that we all like to do, right? Jordan or LeBron. Well, what's the parameters? What's the criteria? What's the greatest dynasty in all of sports? What's the criteria, right? What is the debate? Who's the greatest Oregon football player of all time? Who's the greatest Oregon State football player of all time? Are we talking about one season? Are we talking about a career? Are we talking about accomplishments after them leaving? Or solely when they were on? See, what's the criteria? That has to be determined when you are going to have a ridiculous debate, especially with regard to sports. Well, we have lost that with the College Football Playoff Committee. Now, there is no perfect system to find a national champion in college football. Hear me again. There is no perfect system. A 12-team playoff is going to have as many flaws as this 4-team one has, and as many flaws as the BCS has, and as many flaws as the, hey, let's just all vote. Let's just all secret ballot and vote. Like, everything's going to have flaws. There are too many teams in college football to find a perfect national champion. It's not ever going to be perfect. Yes, Brendan.
Yeah, Justin, on that point, a quick gripe to
All
get
right.
out of my way with another one
What grinds my gears?
with the playoff rankings last night. So you mentioned the 12-team playoff, Justin. What people don't know is it's not just a flat 12-team playoff. There's, like, automatic bids.
Boom.
So when they did a hypothetical one last night, guess who was not in there at number 12, even though they are number 12?
Yeah.
Oregon State football.
The Oregon State Beavers would
So-
not be in the 12-team playoff.
Which is
Because, again, there is no perfect system.
right, exactly.
It's a flawed system, which, by the way, if you just went back and focused on winning your conference, which is less flawed, and had that be the championship that we all celebrated and threw parades around, well, we'd all be a little bit happier. But we couldn't have that. We had to move on. We have to find a national champion. And it's like, all right, well, there's no perfect way to do it. But all that being said, if we could be in charge, what should the parameters be? Because this was my problem with the committee, right? Let's go. Quick evolution. First wave of national champions, it was objectively silly looking back now, going, yeah, a bunch of sports writers who were covering other teams. Brendan, you are an actual sports writer who covers Oregon State. How much other football on a Saturday, even with satellite television and the internet, how much football are you able to watch?
with these eyes, not more than a couple games.
Not much.
Yeah.
And now think back into the 80s when
You couldn't go to ESPN.com/scores and see them all. So,
No.
yes, that's a terrific
you
point.
had to wake up,
read the paper.
pop the paper, and be like, boy, Oregon really ran roughshod over Cal last weekend. I was like, well, did you watch the game? No, you couldn't. And then they voted. And also, it was a bunch of sports writers, and no. Remember, I'm saying no offense, because as I have said multiple times, I'm a sports dumb, but, like, there's a bunch of sports writers who didn't play JV football, and it's like, okay, so you didn't even play JV football.
Tell me how you really feel, Justin.
It's not a criticism; it's an observation, though. Like, could you imagine, Brendan? Could you imagine if somebody who had no business in the radio world just voting, like, this is the best show? It's like, well, you've never done any broadcasting. Like, you don't do it. So how could we trust you to just vote? It's like, yeah, but we're going to do it with sports. It's like, we don't even know the plays that they are running yet. We're just like, yeah, I think they're a better team. It's like, it's objectively silly. And the moment we all just kind of realize that, we're better off for it. Now, moving forward, though, we would just used to vote on it. Then they're like, all right, this human element is a bit of a problem, right? Human element is really throwing us for a loop. Let's bring in some computers, guys. How many? 6 of them. So we brought in the computer rankings. I used to know all of them. I can't even remember what the computer rankings are. But like there were 6 different algorithms, and it was social media before social media. And they're like, what? But let's only have that be like a third.
There's an amazing Twitter account, Justin, that I just stumbled upon. And every week they drop what the BCS would be.
Yeah.
And long story short, it'd be Ohio State, Georgia.
That's not a surprise. But, okay, so where's Washington ranked?
5th?
Still 5th in that?
Yep. Oregon comes in at 8th.
Yeah, that's that computer stuff.
Yep. So
they're like, all right, let's bring in some computers.
And Utah edges Oregon State, so it doesn't take account the head-to-head there. So very different. Also, the computers apparently love James Madison, too. Man,
as they should.
Have you heard about, their journey?
Yeah.
I know we're not going to talk about it, but sorry, quick aside, shout out to James Madison,
Once again, I have tried my best on this particular program to say, look, the NCAA is not evil. All right? Do they get everything perfect? No. Do we need a referee in the game? Yeah. Somebody's got to be there to enforce the rules, right? You're playing a game of sorry. Somebody's got to look on the inside of the box so we know the rules. That's the NCAA. Nobody likes that person. Nobody likes the referee, but you got to have it, right? And I was trying to stick up for the end. Then they do something stupid and go oh, I'm sorry, it's a long-standing rule. It's like, no, it's a ridiculous rule. You could change it like that and nobody's hurt. There's no harm. But
let's test your knowledge real quick, Justin.
Yeah.
I have this comes up with the computers that still get used. You said you thought you remembered a name or a couple names. Any guesses?
I don't have.
When I say them, you're just going to be like, wow. A&H,
Okay.
Billingsley.
The Billingsley report. I interviewed him one time.
There you go.
I interviewed the Billingsley report.
I said as soon as I mentioned, he's going to go, there it is.
Yeah.
Cauley, Massey, Sagarin, and Wolf.
The Massey one I remember was kind of a big deal. But yeah, the Billingsley report, I interviewed him one time.
BCS, man. Didn't think we'd be getting into that this morning.
I thought I had a scoop, and he was like, yeah, I'm just a computer nerd. I put a thing in. It spits it out. It's not me. Because we all thought, these computers are run by people, and obviously it's like, no, dude, I just did a thing.
I just put the numbers in.
I just put the numbers in. Matter of fact, they actually automatically go in. I don't do anything. So we didn't like the computers. And so they're like, we need to pull. All right, fine. Computers are gone. We can't just have sports writers. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, let's do a Harris poll. So they created the Harris poll, right? Because it was the coaches poll, and it was like, well, these other coaches, they're coaching games. They don't know what they're doing either. The Harris poll, former coaches. Turns out, old rivalries die hard in college football. So it's like the Harris poll was.
So you'd be pulling Mike Bellotti and Mike Riley right now?
Yes, they would be perfect guys. And Barry Alvarez was on the Harris poll, and it's like, but he's the athletic director at Wisconsin. Don't you think he is a little bit in the pocket of maybe? So we're like, fine.
That's interesting. I did not know that about the Harris poll.
Oh yeah,
interesting.
So
I remember it, but it was long gone by the time. I can't remember when it went away, but quite a
while.
It
went away, I believe, in 2014 when they ultimately were like, all right, committee, let's just get 12 people in a room. Or 16 or whatever it is, let's get a committee. But like I said at the very beginning of this segment, we didn't define the parameters. If we are going to debate the silliness of who is better between this team and they have not played each other, we have to define the parameters. And they haven't done that. Is it the eye test? Is it solely resume? Is it solely numbers? What? Is it a combination of the three, but one takes precedent? It seems as though, especially with regard to Washington, that we're being graded on a curve. Being graded on a curve. Because I don't understand how the Pac-12 can have the highest-ranked one-loss team in Oregon, the highest-ranked two-loss team in Oregon State, and the lowest-ranked undefeated team? Can somebody make that make sense? Oh, eye test. Got it. Where were your eyeballs when Georgia played Auburn? Did you have eyeballs then? It's like, oh. Because that eye test doesn't pass the smell test. See what I did there? Or wait. Where were your eyeballs when Florida State played Boston College? Where did your eyeballs work
Or when Florida State should have lost to Clemson.
or Duke or like eye test.
And Justin, I remember when you called that upset back in like week 3, you're like, dude, Dabo's gonna figure it out this weekend. And they
Yeah.
literally like were so close. And that would have been helpful for our Pac-12 Lucy in the football if Florida State had a loss along the way. But neither here nor there.
Boston College, they're 6-3, 3-2 in.
Wait, they're good. Go
they're
figure.
6. Well, here's the thing.
Like I didn't think Boston College had been relevant since old Matt
Boston
Ryan.
College has lost to Northern Illinois and they lost to Louisville. Their wins are against Virginia, Army, and Georgia Tech. UConn, who stinks. Syracuse. Like the ACC again has got some problems, but we talk about the eye test. 31-29. Florida State beat Boston College. Boston College is a mediocre college football team. They're not terrible. They're mediocre. Eye test. All right, well, what are we doing? And let's continue with the eye test discussion with the reigning national champion Georgia Bulldogs, because Georgia is undefeated, but they got a 7-point win against Auburn. Now, Auburn, although I think they got a win, they're 5-4. Same record as Colorado. 5-4. And a 4-point win against Cal. And that's where this all comes in. And this is where we're going to play Greg McElroy right now. The arrogance of the big boys of college football. Again, this is why the Pac-12 fell apart. This thought and this mentality and this thinking from Greg McElroy of ESPN, this is why the Pac-12 is falling apart. Let's hear what he had to say, and then I will continue. Oh, but you are. And you did. So let's dive into that thinking real quick. Let's start with the first thing that old Greg McElroy talked about, because, again, talking out of both sides of his mouth. Oh, what you're telling me is that just go schedule Texas Tech. All right, Georgia, UT Martin, Ball State, UAB. And a rivalry game at the end of the year with Georgia Tech, who's in the ACC. UT Martin, Ball State, UAB. That's who Georgia scheduled this year. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back. UT Martin, Ball State, UAB. 48-7, 45-3, 49-21. That's your Georgia Bulldog. No. But Texas, well, just go schedule Texas Tech. Oh, you mean a Big 12 school? You mean a Power 5 school on the road? And yeah, did Oregon look great in that game? No, but they got a win on the road. Georgia played 3 teams, all at home, none of which are in a Power 5 conference. Oh, we just conveniently forget that. And then, like what old Greg McElroy just said, this is the thought and this is the mentality. And it's like, why do you think the Pac-12 ultimately broke up? Multiple reasons, Larry Scott being the biggest. But it's these TV networks and this TV money who are just like, it's the SEC and it's the Big Ten. It's like, well, you don't get in the SEC, you don't get the convenience of playing. Brendan, let's play that one more time because I want to get the wording exactly correct before I destroy it. Let's hear Greg McElroy one more time. Right. They don't have the luxury. They don't have the luxury of playing Cal. All right. Good thing is we got football to look back on. Now, earlier in the season, Cal played Auburn. Wasn't a pretty game. It was week 2. Late Auburn touchdown to give them a 14-10 when Cal had a 10-7 lead going into the fourth quarter. Ugly football. But Auburn, Cal, on the road, one possession game. Okay. So you got to figure Auburn and Cal, right? Brendan, would you say fairly close in stature, considering they played each other? I mean,
Yeah.
fairly close.
So
They played each other.
I'm biased because I think I think we were slightly differing on this on Monday. Like, you objectively think Cal is terrible, and I don't blame you because you watched Oregon roll them.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Cal put up a darn good fight against Oregon State,
That's a good point.
My perspective's just a little bit different than yours.
But let's just.
But yeah, I'd go
for
probably
argument's sake.
Auburn.
For argument's sake, them and Auburn,
Can Auburn make a bowl game?
not that far off in terms of where you would say Auburn is and where you would say Cal is. If you were to rank them in like the one's 44 and one's 45 in the country, you'd be like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, Auburn's going bowling though, so there you go.
But like in terms of like of an opponent,
Sure.
Auburn, Cal, fairly close. Okay, Georgia played Auburn, 27-20. That's right. Georgia played Auburn, 27-20. Got it. Oregon plays Cal, 63-19. I mean, no, we don't have the luxury of playing Cal. Oh, Cal, Auburn, one-score game with Georgia, 5-score game with Oregon. Do you see what I'm saying? It's it's not the fact that Greg McElroy said what he said. It's that he believes what he said. It's like, oh, we don't have, the SEC doesn't have the luxury of playing Cal. You think Cal would beat Vanderbilt? I do. Cal was a 4-point loss to Auburn. I think Cal would beat Mississippi State. I think Cal would beat Arkansas. By the way, all on Georgia's schedule. Oh, we don't have the benefit or the luxury. It's like, yeah, but you get to play Vanderbilt, and you get to schedule. And you get to play South Carolina. South Carolina's 1-5 in conference play and 3-6. So you get to play South Carolina. You get to play Auburn. You get to play UAB and Ball. Like, what on earth is going on? This again, where I come back to. Let's set the parameters. Let's set the criteria. He never did that. And it opens the door for SEC snobs like Greg McElroy to talk out of both sides of his mouth.
Not to mention, Justin, he was in Eugene not too long ago. I want to say it was the Washington State game where Oregon just rolled.
Yeah.
I'm like, like I said, I had to get that out, and I'm glad we did, because you said it earlier, man. I watched the playoff rankings release last night, and it's like, okay, this is cool. Interview with Bo Nix live from Eugene. That was cool. I'm like, why is Greg McElroy taking legit shots at Oregon?
You want to make an argument, you want to make a case, you want to spice it up, and I'm all for it.
We're
but I'm just saying, he asked for consistency, and all I ask is for some consistency. To talk about Auburn or to talk about Alabama the way that you talked about Alabama, well, let's talk about Georgia. Oregon's just not going to schedule anybody. Well, let's talk about Georgia, especially with regard to Washington, because Washington scheduled Michigan State on the road. Now, Michigan State stinks, but they didn't know that 8 years ago when they scheduled that game. Georgia probably had a hunch UT Martin wasn't going to be a wagon when they put them on the schedule. All right, here's what we know. Michigan, they're undefeated. They're really good. Why are they really good? There's some questions with that. But they're not going to win the Sportsmanship Award for the Big Ten. We know that they're not going to if they give away a Sportsmanship Award, they're not going to win the Sportsmanship Award. But could they face the Sportsmanship suspension? That's a real thing. We'll talk about that next. 620 Rip City Radio. what do they call it? Middle-aged guy. But when I was playing sports in high school, that's right, glory days. That was really something. But when I was playing sports in high school, worst thing you could ever get, worst award you could ever get, the worst thing you could ever get, sportsmanship award. If you ever got the sportsmanship award, it meant that you weren't very good. Nobody had won the sportsmanship award and won the championship. It was, I think it was well-intended, but nope, nobody wanted that. Just like when you were a player, like the last thing you wanted to be was most improved. It's like, congratulations, you are most improved. It's like, well, you guys must have thought I was crap not that long ago. But we all know that Michigan is not going to get the sportsmanship award, but they might get the sportsmanship punishment. Didn't know it was a real thing. Might potentially be, even in the next couple of hours. The Michigan story continues to get juicier and juicier. Let's go on campus. All right, so the advanced scouting rule that was established in 1994 as a budgetary issue, because not all schools could afford to advance scout, it's a bit outdated, but it's still a rule, is an NCAA rule. It's not a Big Ten rule. It's an NCAA rule. And we all know the timeliness of the NCAA with regard to punishing teams, right? It's like, all right, well, Michigan, here's your notice of allegations. And then, like, in about 2026, they'll, like, all right, you guys did advance scout. You broke a rule. We're taking away wins. And it's like, all right, great. Don't care. Still got to go to the college football playoff? Yeah, great. Don't care. Well, the Big Ten, and we talked about it, I think, last week, does have a little bit of authority here. I did not know this. Chalk it up as Justin learned something this morning. But apparently there is a clause in the Big Ten that would allow the Big Ten commissioner to suspend Jim Harbaugh up to 2 games based upon sportsmanship. Now that is going to be a tough needle to thread. Is can you prove that they broke a rule and that in essence breaks sportsmanship? And here's the other thing. Let's say Michigan advanced scouted. Clear violation of an NCAA rule. Not a Big Ten rule, but an NCAA rule. And so the Big Ten says, all right, that's bad sportsmanship. And then Michigan comes back, and as we now know, because they've released anonymous reports that seem to check out, Purdue, Ohio State, and I believe Rutgers all coordinated to give Ohio State Michigan signs. Now, that is not against the rules. That is previous game scouting, coaches talking. We don't like Harbaugh. We got to take him down, as opposed to Connor Stalions advanced scouting, cell phone footage from the stands. But if you were to be Michigan to make a case going, hey, sportsmanship is sportsmanship. If sign stealing is now bad sportsmanship, and my coach can be suspended for 2 games, if we now know that Ryan Day, the head coach at Ohio State, was involved in a coordinated effort with other schools, which again, coaches talk, but this is a little bit different. This is a little bit different than Greg Schiano going like, yeah, boy, they really like to go to the strong side on 3rd down, right? That happens all the time. This is Greg Schiano. I don't know the coach at Purdue, but he seems to really not like Michigan. I don't know if you saw that coach's show. Not quite as good as Colorado State's coach's show back in September, but he was like, yeah, guys, it's not even an allegation. We know they did it. Like the Purdue coach was like, what are we even doing here? It's not even an allegation. He did it. Well, Schiano, coercion, coordinated up. Which one is worse? Now, one breaks an NCAA rule, the other one doesn't, but I don't know how you differentiate if you are Tony Petitti. What a mess Tony Petitti is. Boy, Klimkov, well, he watched the Pac-12 burn has got to be looking back and going, it's a darn shame, Tony. This going on. That's got to be tough for you. Darn shame.
How happy is Kevin Warren to be running the Chicago Bears
I
now?
don't know. Have you seen the Bears lately?
Well, they're going to have great draft picks.
They are, but they keep firing people based off of HR stuff.
Well, probably had to come in and clean things up. But, I mean,
Culture not good there either.
He probably looks back and goes, wow, I would have had to been the commissioner to suspend Jim Harbaugh. So,
I mean, if one is sportsmanship, what? I don't know. I don't know how you differentiate the other. But it seems as though Jim Harbaugh may be suspended for as soon as the Penn State game. All right, we've got the big three. We've got Make or Miss. We got a Worldwide Wednesday. Jam-packed hour number 2 next. 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
On a Wednesday morning, Justin Myers with you. College football playoff rankings were announced last night. No major changes in the top six. Washington and Oregon both sitting at 5 and 6 on the outside looking in. Oregon State comes in at number 12. Highest college football playoff ranking in Oregon State football history. Utah is at 18, Arizona at 21. Portland Trailblazers return to action tonight. They'll be taking on the Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center. No Scoot Henderson, though. He is still out with a sprained right ankle. No Anthony Simons, no Robert Williams. But Shane Sharp and Malcolm Brogdon are going to be playing. Tip-off is at 7. Pregame coverage right here on 620 Rip City Radio. And Tyson Alger, friend of the program from the I-5 corridor, joins us in hour number 3. But the big 3 in hour number 2, it starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, hour number 2 of Rip City Mornings. By the way, if you are new to the show, new-ish to the show, or maybe you, for whatever reason, you had a thing came up yesterday, we are live on YouTube. We are streaming on the World Wide Web. We are streaming on the internet. We're also coming through your radio as we do each and every day. But if you go to youtube.com and find the Rip City Radio page, subscribe to it, and you can see not only this particular program, you can see Rip City Drive, you can see Blazers Game Day, you can see Courtside Monday, all the fun things, fifth quarter show, all that stuff, streaming live on YouTube, and you can see behind the scenes. See how many cups of coffee I drink. You can see how much dancing around I do. I think that was one of the consensus from yesterday was, man, Justin, you are moving around. Yeah. Fired up and pumped up. We got 3 hours to talk about fun sports stuff. Let's dive into it. So get to YouTube, subscribe to it. Tell your friends, by the way. We'll work on the decor. We're going to work on the decor. All right, none of us are interior decorators around here, all right? Clearly. But we're going to get it. We're going to get it fixed. We're going to get dialed in. So welcome back to the big show. We've got Make or Miss coming up in 20 minutes. We have got a Worldwide Wednesday coming up in 40 minutes. And as I told you in the update, Tyson Alger is going to join us in the third hour of the program. Lots of things with this schedule that we have that can be a benefit. There's also some struggles. Early alarms, not always the best. But one of the benefits of doing morning radio is my afternoon's clear. Now, Brendan, I don't know what happened yesterday. I cannot put my finger on it. Now, have you ever been in this situation where, let's say, traffic? Now, I know that every time I drive I-5 South to go down to an Oregon football game, regardless of the time, Wilsonville's going to be crowded. It just is. And then when it goes from 3 lanes to 2 right about the Enchanted Forest, right, it's going to be crowded. But every once in a while, you get into a spot and you're like, why is there traffic here? This makes no sense. Like, what
Happened to me yesterday.
Who are all these people? It's interesting that it happened to you yesterday because something not traffic-wise, but crowded people-wise happened to me yesterday. But you know how you get in a situation, you're like, wait, this time of day, this time of year, there should not be this many people in this particular place. Where was it for you?
Yeah, no, it was leaving this show, and I had to get to a doctor's appointment yesterday.
Are you all right? I don't want HIPAA violate, but we're okay?
Something I'll have to deal with down the line.
All right.
But, so potentially a minor surgery in my future.
Oh, no.
But all that aside, so I have it plugged into my phone. I'm sitting here. I'm wrapping up my day, post-show yesterday, and I'm like, okay, map says it's going to take exactly this long to get to Newburgh.
Boom.
Show up right, I don't get to doctor's offices crazy early. You already got to wait too long. So I show up right there, when they say to show up. And then, Justin, I get out there.
That is the worst. Like,
and there's traffic. And I'm like, I left no room for this.
How is it that the whole, appointment thing, doctors have been able to slide on that one? Like, honest to goodness, that has been a comedic trope since I was a kid in the 80s. Like, oh, they got a waiting room, and then you go into the other room and you sit and you wait.
Yeah, you have double waiting.
How have we not streamlined this with technology to where it's like, hey, here's your appointment. Here is between doctors and cable guys, and I know cable's going away. I still have it. Between doctors and cable guys, like, well, we're going to be there between 1 o'clock and
The wide window.
8.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Somebody should be there.
They live on the windows, Justin.
But like the same, like the whole, we need you at a doctor's appointment at 5 o'clock, and it's like, all right, I'm going to show up at 5, and I'm going to sit. It's like, well, what's the deal with the appointment? Like, could you imagine, like, if you went to a nice restaurant, a restaurant that costs as much as maybe a doctor's appointment costs, and you were like, yeah, hi, Myers, reservation for 7:30, and they're like, great, please go into our waiting room.
We'll see you at 8.
And then, like, time goes by, and then they take you, like, all right, we'll put you at your table now. Nobody's going to talk to you for, like, 20 minutes. Can I get a water? No.
So what's the equivalent
Like,
of
that's that's what the doctor's office is. Like, you have a 7:30 reservation. It's like, I might talk to a waiter by 8:15. Like, you would never go to that restaurant ever again.
It's true. Everything you said, I could not have. Yeah, very, very true.
So
what was your story?
One of the benefits of kind of being done in the morning, though, as I mentioned, is I get to go to Costco at non-peak hours. It's me.
Oh, it's glorious.
You know, it usually is.
You know how I feel about going to Costco during the week. That's my jam, man.
Yeah. So, Brendan, I went to my Costco 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah. Not blowing it up on a Tuesday.
Couldn't help myself.
But 10:30 a.m. on a jam-packed.
Really?
Jam-packed.
And this is your one out in Milwaukee?
It's on 82nd. It's Happy Valley, I believe, is the proper municipality. But
I am surprised sometimes you don't hit the one we have right here on our way when you're on your way out.
That doesn't open early enough.
Oh, okay.
That one does.
Okay.
I would have to sit around.
Okay, correct.
Then go there. I would if they
corrected, understood, heard, as they say.
I would have to upgrade my membership to get the early half hour, and I'm like, nah.
Okay.
Brennan, 10:30 on a Tuesday. People are circling looking for spots.
That's bizarre.
It was the most bizarre, and I'm like, who are all these people, and what are they doing here? And I'm like, did I miss something? Is today a day off that I didn't realize? And I know that, like, in some places it was like election day, and sometimes they let people off on election day, but I'm looking around like, these people I don't know what's going on.
There wasn't much to do in the state of Oregon as far as election day goes yesterday.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I didn't get a thing mailed to me.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think there was much going on in the state of Oregon.
That's let me tell you, and now I'm a pretty patient guy, and I also even though I still have a bit of a bum ankle, I got 2 legs. I will park in the back and I will walk, right? I am not going to sit there with my blinker on while this person loads, 4 cases of waters,
I may have done that a time or two. I may have sat and waited for blinker, Justin. I've done that a time or two at Costco. Been like, look at that spot. I am waiting. Y'all can wait for me.
Now, I will if there is no other spots, which I've been there before. But, like, most of the times, like, I'll go to the back. I'll walk it. It's not raining, right? I'll walk it. There's no spots. Finally, I find a spot. I walk it in, and it's like, all right, it's a little crowded. I got nowhere to be. My afternoon's wide open. I am not in a hurry. I can casually. The old people who are used to the Costco being theirs, from about 10 a.m. till I would imagine 11:45 a.m. Like, that's old people Costco. Like, they have the run of the place.
I'm not even going to say just Costco, Justin, because very much like you, I get off a little bit after you and have a tendency to do all my shopping or, grocery shopping or just my general errands on my way home.
Peak old people hours.
It is.
10 a.m.
It's because everyone else works.
Till about noon. Till some people in their lunch breaks will go, but it's like, and these old people were so mad. These old guys were so fired up. I saw one guy, like, because moved a cart, and then, like, somebody had a cart in the way, and old guy just grabbed not his cart and was just like, where are all these people coming from? So old guys were fired up. So
he was fired up.
So then, most of the time at the Costco, I I keep to myself. So I'm going to reveal something here that it's going to sound not the best, but in context, plus, Brendan, you know me, you're going to be like, par for the course. My wife and I like to drink wine. We've found a wine that we very much like at Costco, and we buy it in bulk. All right? Buy it in bulk, goes in the basement, always got a decent bottle of wine, and there's the one we found. And so 12 at a time, we buy those bad boys.
Okay, that is a lot, but Costco's in bulk, so
Costco's, of all the,
it makes sense. No.
They're sitting there, they're in the box. It's the Portugal.
Justin, you probably would look at me the same way when I tell you, I go buy the industrial-sized case of Coca-Cola that they don't make in any other store.
Doesn't exist. Yeah. We're low. Got to pick up some wine.
Sure.
So I go to pick up the wine. Guy sitting there is holding a phone to his ear, talking to somebody, probably wife, on the phone, trying to figure out what wine to buy. Then I go, excuse me. And he's like, oh, yeah, no problem. And I pick up my 12 bottles of wine. 12. And he goes, hey, excuse me. Have you drank that before? And in my head, I'm like, dude, I'm buying 12. Yeah, I've had it before. I'm buying, you don't buy 12 bottles of wine you have not drank before. I'm buying.
I probably would have made a snarky comment. So good to you.
I was like,
good for you.
I
been like,
I was throwing it back.
I would have been too. Probably just in your zone, like
Brendan,
I'm getting in, I'm getting out.
12 bottles.
Guy
lot. Goes, have you had that before? Yeah, a time or two. And then in my head, I go, dude, I'm buying 12. And I go, yeah, I've had it. And he goes, do you like it? Is it any good? And in my head, once again, I go, again, sir, I'm buying 12. No, never tried it. I figured, what the heck? Let's try a dozen. Or, had it once, wasn't the best. Maybe these next 12 bottles will turn yeah, I like it. And I'm like, yes, I like it. It's good. Buy it. And then I moved. 12 bottles. Have you ever had that before? No. These are gifts. We buy modestly priced wine and give them out to friends and family for the holidays. Yeah, I've had it before. I got a dozen of them, dude. Do you like it? Yeah, kind of do. That's why I'm buying 12. Could just buy one, try it. No, I'm going to start with the 12. I'm going to commit. So anyway, that was my day at Costco yesterday.
Yeah, that sounds like I had a pretty wacky day yesterday, Justin, for a lot of reasons. But that sounds like it probably, if I would have thrown that in there yesterday, too, it would have been a really wacky day. So, yeah, that would have taken me back, too.
Dude, the old guy cart, he was so mad. Grabbed somebody else's cart and, moved. He's like, where are all these people coming from? You know what I'm not mad about? Getting to the big three. Let's dive right in.
Pac-12's not good, Justin.
So the undefeated team should be the highest ranked. Oh, no, they're the lowest.
They're not good, dude.
I mean, I'm not a math
Bunch
whiz,
of malarkey.
but figure that one out. All right, coming up next, we have got Make or Miss. We got a worldwide win. USC, late night at Autzen Stadium, 7:30 kickoff. Oregon State taking on Stanford. Oregon State looking for, was it win number 9, would it be?
8.
Win number 8.
7-2.
7-2 right now, looking for win number 8 before a massive matchup against Washington. And I know, Brendan, a lot of the Beaver believers still have eyes on Vegas, mathematically still in it, still have some eyes on potentially being the biggest disruptor in the Pac-12 in their final year, right? Let's pull a major league, right? Win the whole bleeping thing. But looking at some of these bowl projections, we need an Oregon State Clemson Holiday Bowl.
I would love that.
We gotta have an and I'm
I
wondering,
love it.
the college football playoff is going to expand, and the talk is always going to be what is going to happen with the bowls? There's going to be more of this because obviously quarterbacks are going to move around and coaches are going to move around, and they do it in the NCAA tournament all the time, right? If you know anything about every once in a while, there's a bracket where it's like, okay, so the committee of the basketball tournament is like, they got a little bit cute here. Like that guy used to coach for that guy, and now you got him matching up, and that guy clearly doesn't like that guy. But it's never really happened in football because there's not a lot of player movement, and usually the bowls are pretty. Could you imagine at Petco Park? Hopefully they get the grass fixed this time. It was a mess last year, but Petco Park, Oregon State, DJU going up against Dabo. What? We have to make that happen.
I mean, that'd be must watch. I mean,
other than matchups in the college football playoff, that has to happen.
I mean, you think about obviously, first of all, that's where Oregon State's trending bowl game anyway, so that's appealing. Oregon State's never been to the Holiday Bowl. I think you mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
So that's, again, an appealing thing you would think for that committee. And Justin, you said it yourself. The storylines would write.
You put Oregon State and Clemson in that game, and
they write themselves.
I don't know what ratings would be, but it would be huge. Outside of the Big Six or the New Year's Six, there would be no other game that everybody would watch that game.
So it would be a little bit more watched than Oregon State, Florida, when Florida team doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Because DJ, you're like, yep, let's do it. Let's strap up, boys. And boy, rally around your guy.
Be a lot of fun. I'll say that.
And Clemson would be coming in going hey, we ran you out of town for a reason.
I could use a Christmas trip to San Diego, Justin. So put it in the universe.
That's got needs to happen.
Yeah, sounds good to me, man.
Needs to happen.
Just no Sun Bowl. That's
I was trying to think because other potential I hope Oregon makes college football playoff. That that is on the record. Justin would like that to happen. If they don't, Oregon, Alabama, New Year's Six matchup.
Cotton Bowl, maybe? Or
Bo
Fiesta?
Bo Nix, Alabama born, Auburn raised, Iron Bowl still in his blood. Won an Iron Bowl. Beat Alabama.
They would probably love to do the Cotton Bowl to go 50-50 between those two schools, but I have no problem.
And finally, Oregon, Bama, the matchup that has been 10 years in the making since Oregon students started chanting, "We want Bama," but they didn't beat Stanford. That was rough. But the matchup that finally, Oregon and Bama that Oregon fans have always wanted, and you would have Bo Nix at quarterback. The Alabama, I'm just making storylines here.
I mean,
that being said, would rather play in the college football playoff against anybody.
I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, last night it was interesting, Justin, looking at the college football playoff and their projections that they threw out there. Because of if it ended today, they would have Washington in the Fiesta Bowl and Oregon in the Cotton Bowl. So that they're assuming today neither one of them make it, which obviously is not how it's going to work with matchups and all that.
Weird stuff's going to happen, man.
But regardless of all that, that's still, obviously they want to make the playoff, but that still would be the best thing for Oregon State to see Washington and Oregon go to New Year's Six Bowl.
Go to New Year's Six Bowls.
Unless they can replace them themselves with wins.
And then the Beavs go to the Holiday or the Alamo Bowl? No,
or the Alamo. That works too. They got to play a good Texas team, though.
Don't want them to go to the Alamo Bowl. Go to the Holiday Bowl. ACC matchup. Let's get Clemson there. And let's get DJU against his old team. And let's
Justin,
get I don't know how many millions of people would watch that, but I bet you a lot would. ESPN would love it. Oh my God, they would love it.
it will be interesting because I'm curious to know how the ACC standings make out or ultimately end up shaking out this year. What if they played like Miami and Cristobal came back into the live of Jonathan Smith as their rivals from a couple years ago?
Well,
the
thing
Miami's obviously in that mix, so it would be ACC. So a couple
but
teams.
the
I would imagine.
thing about the
Clemson hasn't even reached 6 wins yet.
I know.
So
But
this is premature.
Here's the thing about the bowl games, though, because while there is usually slotted spots, right? Number 3, blah, blah, blah. Bowl games pick whoever they want. They can pick whoever they want. And I don't know if anybody would bat an eye, even Louisville or Miami or any of those is like, hey, we got Oregon State locked in the Holiday Bowl. Clemson's playing them. Like, we get first pick of all ACC teams not in the New Year's Six. Clemson is playing in the Holiday Bowl against Oregon State. It's going to happen.
Clemson should be thankful they still have a matchup with South Carolina, Justin, because they're not going to probably beat North Carolina. Georgia Tech is
You don't think so? You don't think Clemson could beat North Carolina?
I think they can. I don't think they will.
All right.
I mean, Clemson to
You
me
don't think Clemson turned the corner with that win? They stormed the field.
to be perfect.
Dabo was like, I'm back, baby.
I mean, maybe. He did say buy stock. If Clemson's a stock,
It's the
buy
worst
low.
it's going to be. It's as low as it's ever going to be.
I mean, maybe. Clemson kind of strikes me a little bit like Florida last year, where it's like they're going to struggle to get to 6 wins. And would Dabo and all those guys be thrilled to go to the Holiday Bowl? I don't know.
Don't care.
Right? You know what I mean? Like,
you got to go, and you got to coach against DJU. You got to do it.
this is true.
Don't care if you want to be there or not. You're going. You ran him out of town, and now you got to face the music. You got to pay the piper now. So good. All right, let's get to the big – or no, we already did the big 3. We're moving on. It is time for Make or Miss.
It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good. Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and a
Done. Former coach, former quarterback, even though Caleb Williams would
go, oh, wait, USC's defense is really bad.
Yeah.
And then it just got worse from there. Anyway, let's go ahead and open up Make or Miss.
Connor Stallions is like you and me, but like elevated. And what do I mean by that? I grew up diehard, lifelong Oregon fan. You grew up diehard, lifelong Oregon State fan, wanting everything for, turned out to be your alma mater, was not mine. And he grew up I love Michigan. I bleed maize and blue. All I want to do is dedicate my life to making Michigan football good, and he did that through the military and sign stealings and covert operations with regard to football. And it's like, I could see a guy who wrote a 600-page manifesto also in his brain going like, you know what? I'm going to try to get Blake Corum some money. I'm going to set up a business here on his own. But yeah,
So here's the
I don't know if I believe.
Yeah,
I don't know
so
if I believe him.
Here's the context with that.
Boy, man, Connor Stallions is just Captain Toxic, isn't
he's
he?
He's everywhere. I mean, he's for how how efficient he is. You might as well call him Tony Stark at this point. But the Wyoming Secretary of State, Blake Corum, Connor Stallions, and a third party are listed as organizers of a limited liability corporation, aka an LLC.
I know all about that.
Called BC2 Housing, which lists
Like a real estate development?
which lists a home in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, so this is that's a way around an NIL deal.
And it says property records show this address is a home Stallions purchased a year and a half ago.
So they bought Blake Corum a house.
Pretty much.
And they did it through an LLC.
What it sounds
so
like.
that way it's listed as NIL instead of a gift, which I still think is an impermissible benefit.
Now,
I don't think you can just buy a kid a house. I think you got to go through a business.
I don't know the exact rules again, Justin, like we
Nobody
said
knows
earlier.
the rules, dude. There's no rules.
So listen, it's Corum's quote that is so interesting. It's like, wait, no, guys, don't look at me. I'm with you guys. This guy's crazy. I don't have any businesses with Connor.
Except for the house I live in.
But I'm really glad whoever found it. My attorneys are on it. Definitely will get that figured out right away. I don't know how many college kids have attorneys who are, quote, on it.
All right,
in a press God, Michigan is
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask this real quick.
Such a bunch of cheaters.
The percentage of, again, I know I say this a lot. My wife's an attorney, so that's why I can say I have an attorney. I don't drop it. I don't go like, oh, I'll let my attorney look at it unless I'm being funny at a party. But like, that's my
5%.
You may have a guy.
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
or your frat brother who's now a lawyer. You're like, he's my guy,
Blake
man.
Corum doesn't have a lawyer. I'm going to get my attorneys
but
on
I'm glad whoever found it. Are you, Blake? Are you?
Man, what a crazy,
I'm just saying,
crazy
like,
time.
no shame for Blake Corum. And, like I said, I am all for NIL. I'm all for guys making a buck, right? I guarantee you right now, Bo Nix and Michael Penix are not going hungry at night.
Well, here's the other thing, though, and we'll end on this. I always tell you, Brendan, you ever any questions, follow the money.
It's true.
How does Connor Stallions, who, from what I understand, went to Annapolis Naval Academy, was a kind of a career military guy, you get paid okay, but you're not paid globally. There's a big old world out there, and there's a lot of weird stuff. And so we search the internet high and low to find some of the more interesting and intriguing stories around the world. We call it Worldwide Wednesday.
We searched far and wide, and we found the most random story you never heard. It's Worldwide Wednesday on RCM.
All right, we head down south of the border. Remember about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago? I think it was probably the summer, when a member of the Mexican government said he had extraterrestrials. He's like, I got aliens. And he presented the aliens, and it was like, well, if you were ever to find aliens that looked exactly like they looked in movies, that's exactly what they would look like. Well, they're back. We have more evidence. We go back to Mexico for the alien investigation. The lower chamber of Mexico's Congress once again turned a spectacle, and this was yesterday, devoting hours of time to a controversial character who pressed the case for non-human beings. He said they were found in Peru. So this guy will not quit. Less than 3 weeks after Hurricane Otis devastated Acapulco, a port of nearly 1 million people. Jose Jaime Moisan, I'm sure I butchered that name.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I butchered that one. And his group of Peruvian doctors have now said, we got more aliens. We got more out there.
They are not part of our terrestrial evolution, is the quote there, Justin.
Aliens in Peru.
That makes my skin tingle a little bit. I know that, this is something that we've all... I'm 100% convinced, Justin, this is the government's evil plan. It is that they realize if they let enough of this work its way out there over the next 5 to 10 years, like where, people like my parents or Justin or, Dave at Costco or whatever would be like, oh, yeah, I've heard rumors that there are aliens. Then it won't be so crazy to believe that when it actually happens, they'll be like, we have aliens. And everyone will be like, oh, yeah, we've known this for 10 years.
All right, here's my thing.
That's my thought.
Let me give you the opposite perspective. Now, I have said multiple times, there's a lot of things I don't believe in. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't believe in ghosts.
You hate Bigfoot, don't you?
Can't hate something that doesn't exist. Can't.
Story for another time.
Don't believe
but you
Bigfoot.
hate Bigfoot.
I'm just saying, like...
It's our thing in the PNW and you hate it.
Like one grainy video, and it's like, we have the amount of microbial beings that can only be found under a microscope that we have found. Yet, can't find big, hairy Bigfoot. Okay? Explain that one to me like I'm 5. So, that's my thing. Also, ghosts. Not buying ghosts. I don't do it. You want to believe in ghosts? That's fine. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do. I'm just saying a lot of people perish upon this earth, sadly, each and every day. There's like 5 ghosts. Come on. So, the numbers don't add up. Now, all that being said, I know that I'm here, I think. And I know that you're here. And I know that people in our listening audience are here. So, if we're here on this rock spinning around this star, which is what the sun is, and I look up in the sky and I'm like, there's a lot of big old suns out there. And are there other rocks floating? If we're the only ones, that's kind of nuts. Like, the math doesn't add up the other way.
Right.
So maybe they're aliens. But I will say this. If there are extraterrestrial beings, we're way smarter than them. I'm pretty sure. I don't like the fact that everybody just believes that the aliens are the smart ones.
Like Independence Day. Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure we're smarter than them. Like, I think we got them. I mean, we have college football, for crying out loud. Do you think they got college football? Some other rock? No. All that being said, I don't know. Again, so I'm not poo-pooing the existence of something else out there. I don't know. Here's what I don't believe in, though. Anybody at a high-ranking position in our government being able to keep a secret. I just don't believe it. Too many secret, like, the idea that this many people could know, and nobody's written a book, nobody's done cashed in, that information is worth how many millions of dollars? If you could come out and be like, hey, I got definitive evidence. I got it right here. I snuck it out. You're a gajillionaire. Now, you probably have to go to a non-extradition country once you do that. But you know what I mean? Like they can't keep a secret on anything. They're going to keep a secret on aliens?
I guess my thought is that, Justin, like, maybe it's okay, let's counter the other way.
Mm-hmm.
If they were keeping secrets, would there not be a really good reason to? Because, again, not judging, just observing. If you were to put out, if Mr. Joe, we're going to come greet America tonight and say, my fellow Americans, there are extraterrestrial
That's
life.
an Obama voice you're doing, though.
Well,
you just did Obama for Biden.
Okay, that's fair.
It's 2 presidents ago.
That is fair. It's like, can we go back to 2 presidents ago?
But okay, and that kind of makes my other point.
But
and I don't dive into one or the other. Like we don't do that on this show. We welcome all.
Sure.
We welcome all viewpoints, and we can just hang out and have fun for 3 hours. We don't dive into political discussions, and I don't put my feelings out on anybody else. But here's what I know: if the president were to know, don't you think that the one president we had would have said something? He said everything else.
It's true.
It
is true.
Hey, you need to show us your taxes. You know I don't.
You make a great
No,
argument.
I don't.
You do.
Don't worry. I'm a millionaire and I'm a billionaire.
But
don't worry about it.
I'll say this, Justin. If that were
he
to
said
happen,
everything else.
You are totally right. But if the president, not even got current, but anybody were to come greet the country and say there is extraterrestrial life, don't look up. There would be half of the country, particularly those who, maybe had some self-defense capabilities, it would be anarchy. And I just don't, that's reason enough to keep a secret, right?
I don't know.
It's crazy, though. But yeah, I mean, Justin, more and more people, sounds like Mexico is going to do it for us, though.
We'll see. Find out. So we will keep an eye.
Keep an eye on Mexico.
We're looking at you, Mexico.
Yeah, you bet. Justin's going to Mexico next. Maybe he'll get an alien encounter.
Might have to. I don't know. See what happens I'm not going to Acapulco, though.
That's true.
We've got the 3rd hour of the program. Tyson Alger is going to join the show. We may dive into some Blazer talk as well. They're back in action tonight. We got the RCM mailbag, all sorts of fun stuff. Next, 620, Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Justin Myers with you. College football playoff rankings are in. No major changes to the top six. Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State are your top four. Washington on the outside looking in at number 5. Oregon, the highest ranked one-loss team, sitting at number 6. Oregon State, the highest ranked two-loss team, at number 12. The highest ranking in the college football playoffs ever for the Oregon State Beavers. Utah at 18, Arizona at 21. Blazers back in action tonight. They'll be shorthanded, though, squaring off against the Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center. No Scoot Henderson, no Anthony Simons, no Robert Williams. Tip-off is set for 7 o'clock. Pre-game coverage begins right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Tyson Alger joins the show in 20 minutes as Oregon faces USC with college football playoff looming. Feel like we've been here before with Oregon in November. College football playoffs in the mix. Will the story change this season? Hour number 3 of RCM starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The most transparent show in Portland is Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers. Here on 620 Rip City Radio.
Yeah, I mentioned it right at the beginning of the show. The football, Lucy. Do the kids still know who Charlie Brown is? When I say, like, I'm Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football, like, did anybody 25 and under understand what I'm talking about? No.
I can only use my siblings, Justin, who are 18 and 15.
Yeah.
They know because my dad was an old school, Peanuts on Thanksgiving. We're watching.
Heck yeah. Great pumpkin.
But I'll say this. About 5, and I remember, I think it was before you came online, but it was something we talked about on this show and something I remember talking about. When they took the Peanuts off of ABC, off of NBC, off of the holiday slate and said, you can only see the Peanuts if you have Apple TV.
Oh, yeah.
I remember coming on this show and being like, there's going to be a generation of kids that just don't know
do not understand what the football and Charlie Brown what it means.
I'm sure there are families who are subscribed to Apple TV and happily put on the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown for their little ones. But it kind of puts it into a segment, and to know it's not on regular TV anymore, Justin, I love the Peanuts, but if you're 18, 15 years old, how is it not a has-been thing?
Well, I'm going to keep saying old references, and people are just going to have to. And kids are going to have to understand them. It's all his peanut allergies, maybe something like that. I don't know. Anyways, point being, I was talking about for months now, it feels like college football is finally. Hey, Pac-12, we like you. You're good. We see what you've done here. You got some quarterbacks. You got some coaching. You got some stability. And then I know you're falling apart at the end, so we'll give you also a little bit of a benefit. We're going to rank you some. Boy, that Dion guy, he's a real character. You got a lot going for you, Pac-12. And then just waiting until finally the college football playoff ranking show yesterday finally showed the ugliness that is SEC and Big Ten snootiness of they get to play Cal in the middle of the season. Yeah, it's called the conference schedule. Georgia gets to play South Carolina and Vanderbilt. I would put Cal up against both of those schools. Well, this is what happens when you schedule Texas Tech. It's like Georgia has UAB and Tennessee Martin on their schedule. Sorry, what are we doing? And much like the football analogy for that, I do have a nervousness, which is, stop me if you've heard this story before. Oregon football, high hopes, good quarterback. All right? Those high hopes take a bit of a gut punch from a loss somewhere in the season. Sometimes the first game of the season. Sometimes it's the third game of the season. But somewhere, a little gut punch for Oregon football. But they respond to said gut punch by getting back in the mix and sitting just on the outside looking in with everything in front of them when November college football playoff rankings come in. Stop me if you've heard this before. Then November hits. and you hear stories of Arizona State and Jaden Daniels. You hear Michael Penix at Autzen Stadium last year. You hear Utah twice in 3 weeks in 2021. You going back even further before there was a college football playoff. USC out of nowhere, who was on probation at the time in 2011. LeBron's there to watch the game. Stanford in 2012. I mean, I could keep going. I could twice the November monster has not struck the Oregon Ducks, and that was 2010 and that was 2014. But 2011, 2012, 2019, 2021, 2022, that November monster, sometimes late October, but that November monster of like Oregon football is, guys, I think we got it figured out. We got a good quarterback. We got a coach we really like. I know there was a game where it took a gut punch, but we're back. We're back in the mix. Just got to win the games you are favored. Oh, boy. 2021, Stanford, who was terrible. Now, then they would bounce back, though, from that terrible loss to Stanford. Remember, because they beat Ohio State in the horseshoe. Remember that happened? Oh, by the way, I love all those. And I understand why there's some anger coming from some parts of the Valley. But good luck in the Big Ten. Look at that. It's like, yeah, it was 2 years ago. Oregon went to the horseshoe. And
with Anthony Brown at quarterback.
Yeah.
Nonetheless. So no disrespect to Anthony Brown, but Anthony Brown's two best games that year were against Oregon State and Ohio State.
Boom.
I'll leave you at that.
Went to the horseshoe and got him. Like that happened. Regular season on the true road game.
Anthony Brown might have been drafted, might be in the NFL for how well he played against Oregon State that day.
And just this idea that like, oh, Oregon good luck once you go up against the big boys of the Big Ten. It's like, you mean like in 2021 when they beat them? Like, all right. Not saying Oregon's going to go undefeated in the Big Ten. Not saying that's going to happen at all. But the idea that they're not going to be able to compete is a little bit silly. But yeah, I get. I have a nervousness. I have a nervousness with regard to that November monster because it's bitten the Oregon Ducks before. I saw this. This is shifting gears. NFL question. I saw this. Brendan, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I mentioned it on yesterday's show after the Monday night performance because while the Los Angeles Chargers got a win against the Jets objectively stunk. They handed over the game. And Herbert was like 54% accuracy, did not look his best. And I said, do we need to have a Justin Herbert conversation? Because Justin Herbert had a record-breaking rookie season, right? He got thrown in the mix with the Tyrod Taylor punctured lung and never gave it back, and monster numbers from a rookie quarterback. Those monster numbers are going to be shattered by C.J. Stroud. But regardless, for a couple years, he had them. And there was a time where 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you said, hey, you get a quarterback for the next 10 years. Justin Herbert's probably at the top of a lot of those lists. Patrick Mahomes probably won. Josh Allen was there. But remember, Joe Burrow, he tore his ACL. Tua was not Tua yet. Trevor Lawrence was still in college. Lamar Jackson was coming off of an injury. 2019 MVP year, 2020 year coming off of an injury. And it was like, is he going to be able to play at the NFL level? So I am ripping this off from the Fox Sports 1 TV show, First Things First, which is an interesting show. They made some headlines for not a good thing earlier this week, but they bounced back. I'm going to throw out some names here, Brendan. Where does Justin Herbert rank in the quarterback for the – you are a GM and you get a quarterback for the next 10 years. Next 10 years, you get a quarterback.
Going to win a lot of championships.
Patrick Mahomes, probably number one on that list. Quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just throw out a couple of names, and let's kind of rank them. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, a lot of J names. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence. I'll throw C.J. Stroud in there. Where does Herbert rank on that list in terms of if you were to pick a quarterback, you invest, Shark Tank, right? You get to invest for the next 10 years. Mahomes is number one. Of that list, I think Joe Burrow's number two on that list. I'm done doubting Jalen Hurts. He's probably number three on that list. Is Justin Herbert, whom I love. Did I say that enough? I love and I root for, but just having the conversation, would you have him over Lamar Jackson for the next 10 years? It's questionable. Trevor Lawrence?
Yes, I would have Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson.
Right.
That's hard to say, especially with how good the Ravens are.
Yeah.
But
again, that's 10 years, not 3 years.
Yes,
right?
but over 10 years, I don't expect Lamar's knees to hold up.
What about Trevor Lawrence?
I'd take Herbert.
Over Trevor Lawrence?
I would.
Okay.
I would.
What about C.J. Stroud? He's 8 games in. He's going to break all of Herbert's rookie records.
I have a strong, you go back and look at Justin Herbert's rookie year. He put up ridiculous numbers too.
That's what I'm saying.
So I think I'd still go with Herbert because he's bigger.
Is there anybody I'm missing? I love Kenny Pickett. He's not in this conversation.
No, I don't mean to poo-poo Kenny Pickett, but you're
Steelers going to have a decision to make coming up in about a couple.
Well, we'll see what happens this Thursday.
It's easy to sit there and laugh at the Bears. Like, well, are they going to move? Like, do we believe he's the guy? Is it really the offensive coordinator's fault? Are we pulling Dallas Cowboys where we just keep blaming the offensive coordinator for the fact that the quarterback just can't get the job done? I don't know.
Is Dak too old for this discussion?
I don't know. I would take every single one of those guys over Dak for the next 10 years. Every single one of those guys.
I was very impressed by Dak this last weekend. That was this Cowboy Eagle game was good, and I think he is a little slept on. I know he hasn't performed when it's mattered, but I think he's in the middle. I think he's in that mix where I'm like, I would probably take everybody on that list, but again, someone I think you have to consider. Perfectly healthy.
All right.
Kirk Cousins is in that mix.
He's a little bit on the 10 years.
That's true.
10 years.
That's
now,
true. That's
two
true.
is
That's
not on the list. 2 is not on the list.
Ooh, yeah.
Now it was the whole two. Justin Herbert, Tua will always kind of be a debate, and it was Justin Herbert had the edge early. Now Tua has got a super nerd head coach that seems to have the perfect plays all the time, and he's got a guy that's faster than everybody else in Tyreek Hill. That helps. Not going to have that maybe for the next 10 years, but
just to make some people that I know Justin.
But Tua's
in that mix too, and just to make some people that Justin and I know personally roll their eyes through the radio. Justin, would you take Brock Purdy over any of those dudes?
Does he get to keep Debo and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle for the next 10 years?
Yes.
Because if he gets to keep and Grant Williams and
Trent Williams.
Not Grant Williams. I don't know who that is.
NBA player. NBA player.
That's who Grant Williams is.
I got you.
Trent Williams, and Chase Young, and he's
Arik Armstead. I mean, just keep.
You got to keep all those. Salary cap just doesn't exist ever.
You take.
He's going to only make $800,000 for the rest of his career. He's going to sign a 10-year,
$800,000,
$8 million over 10 years. If that, give me Brock Purdy.
Nobody in the NFC South, so that's disappointing. I wouldn't even take Bryce Young for 10 years right now with what I've seen. I wouldn't. I'd pass on.
It's tough. It's tough there.
Do you think? Would you take Bryce Young for 10 years in any context? I think the Panthers are looking over at Stroud, like you said so perfectly yesterday.
I mean, that one.
You said yesterday that's going to be the regret that organization holds for a very long time.
I think so.
It's early still-ish, but the returns are not good.
Also, don't sleep on Jared Goff, by the way. Jared Goff seems to have found a spot.
How old? How young/old is old Jared?
Well, when we were talking with Nick Allione on Friday, he played against Oregon in 2013.
He's 29.
It's 10 years ago. So
I don't know if he'd be quarterbacking at 39. So he might be a little out of that mix. But, there's guys getting older, right? I mean, I think even Lamar Jackson has got to be pushing 30, right?
He's 27.
Yeah, 26. Okay.
Boom, 26. I was close.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. It was just I thought it was-
Ages are interesting.
I
They
love
really
Herbert.
are.
I'm just saying, like, you look at
Fascinating debate.
there's a new crop of quarterbacks.
All with the J.
Mm-hmm. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor, Oregon, USC, Autzen Stadium, under the lights. Late kickoff. We'll talk to Tyson next, 620 Rip City Radio. you know what? Just win the rest of your games. The rest of it will take care of itself. But if you are maybe reading between the lines of the college football playoff selection show, they're already starting to build a case for some other teams. Is it as simple as that? But I know it is as simple as if Oregon loses a game and the November monster shows up again, that they will not be in the college football playoff. Joining us now to talk about all things from Oregon football, big win against Cal, looking ahead to USC and the college football playoff, and whatever fun stuff we get into. Tyson Alger, friend of the program, back on the big show. Good morning, Tyson. How we doing? There we go. How we doing?
Hey, Justin, I'm doing great. How are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, it is a very fun time of year. It is a very stressful time of year as the college football playoff rankings come out. And, I talked about it this morning, Tyson, that, when you get into, like, sports arguments, as people like us are prone to do, I'm always let's define the parameters, right? Greatest player in Oregon history. All right, are we talking about at Oregon? Are we talking about single season? Are we talking about as a career? And I feel like the College Football Playoff Committee has done a poor job of defining the parameters. Is it eye test? Is it resume? Is it strength of schedule? Is it just like the gut feeling of half the people in the committee? I feel like the parameters have not been defined with this committee this year.
I think that's completely fair, and I think it's kind of been that way since the start of the year because you'll always see the kind of the fence posts change depending on what team it is. I mean, like even like a Michigan or Georgia, like a couple teams who haven't really played a whole lot of teams yet, but you just kind of assume that they're going to be good. Like there's so much in the college football playoff that is based off of reputation and past performance, and it, in some of these teams' cases, it sometimes seems like it's past performance from multiple years ago. So I think it's a very hard conversation to get into to change the type of conversation, if that makes sense. I mean, just the Pac-12 has kind of been a joke for the last 6-7 years, and I think that you very clearly have two teams who have shown they're as good as anybody in the country. But again, because the parameters kind of change, you don't quite know exactly what this is. Is it the two teams that are going to be the absolute best on January 12th or whenever the national championship game? Is it the teams that were the best during the season? Is it the teams that have like the highest ceiling but maybe a low floor? Like we're nearly a decade into this thing, and I'm still not quite sure what the 4 playoff teams should be, other than they should probably be good football teams as a baseline.
That's a solid baseline. Yeah, I felt like for about 2 months or so, like the tide was finally turning. And it's sad because it's the last year of the Pac-12, Tyson, but the tide was finally turning. Like the people at ESPN, the SEC snooties at ESPN and the Big 12, high and mighties, we're all like finally recognizing, they're playing some good football out there. They might be the best conference from top to bottom. We heard that for 2 months. And then finally, Greg McElroy yesterday just kind of let it slip. I likened it to like being at a party and you were invited, and then at some point, some D-bag frat guy comes up to you and goes, "Hey, who are you and who invited you? Because I don't know you." That's what it felt like. Like, oh, it was fun for 2 months, Pac-12. Now, like, cute win against Cal and all, but it's time for Texas and Alabama to kind of take over. That's what it felt like last night.
Yeah, you run into the frat guy at the party, and he asks, "Who are you?" And you're like, I rent a room here, man. Like I live. You're in my house. Yeah, no, it 100% feels like it's setting up like that. I mean, like I think that's why ESPN went like all out covering Colorado like that first month of the year, and it did plenty of like Pac-12 lip service and kind of like this is the conference of quarterbacks and everybody's good and blah, 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 blah. And yet here they are doing the exact same thing that they do every single year, because guess what? When you have a bunch of good teams that play each other, like some teams are going to lose. Like, did they somehow think that there was going to be like 6 Pac-12 teams that came into the final week of the season with 1 loss? Like that's impossible. And it seems like the Pac gets criticized for that. Like I even got so annoyed during the USC Washington game. There was a lot of East Coast kind of national media, specifically one from The Athletic, who tweeted out, like, do we really think that this is quality football, that this is a good football game? And it's like, did you see some of the scores from the Big Ten this last week? Like, yeah, like or Washington USC isn't perfect football. They don't play great defense, but I'd rather watch that than Iowa score 3 points. Like it's different football, and I think there's still such like you sit there from the East Coast from your high perch, and it's easy to kind of criticize the stuff on the other side of the country when you got pretty bad football in front of your face too. So yeah, I think that the narrative is being set up like, oh, here comes Alabama, here comes Texas. I still think if Oregon wins out, they're going to be fine. But again, there's 0 degree of difficulty because it's funny. You can even take like a team like Alabama, who everyone was ready to bury about a month and a half ago. And it's not like they've been better than Oregon since. Why do they have more momentum than the Ducks? It confuses me, Justin, and I'm glad that we're here as representatives on the West Coast, firing these takes up into space so nobody can hear them.
Well,
how are you doing?
The good news is we're on YouTube now. Rip City Radio page on YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube now. So internet. We are hitting the internet now. So obviously our voices shall be heard from Tuscaloosa to Athens to Ann Arbor and all points in between. And I'm sure they're gonna be like, you know what, those boys out in Oregon, they're making good points. I think we should maybe pay attention.
I'm looking forward to the Feinbaum segment today when it's like, did you hear Alger on Myers' show this morning? Yeah.
Ain't played nobody, Paul. Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One of the things that has happened this year that has made Oregon fans very giddy, very excited. These Ducks versus them, these cinematic wrap-ups that are getting longer and longer, and I could only imagine what it's going to be like if they make the college football playoff. Like, are we going to get like a 4-part Netflix series from these cinematic recaps? But Tyson, I go back to the one from Utah, and it was Dan Lanning saying like, "Hey, does anything that's happened before have anything to do with what's going to be going on in this game?" And of course, like, no. And it's been a hard principle as a fan with scars, and you know this because of the Mariners. As a fan with scars, like, yeah, coach, but there are times when Oregon is in this position where you just have to win out and you're favored in your games, and just something weird happens in November. All that being said, it looked like weird first quarter against Cal. Like, is the rain going to be a thing? Are they going to be in for a ball game? No, turns out not. Blow them out. Washington State, are the Cougs going to spoil the party, especially after that Washington turns? No. All right, got to go to Utah. Never really win at Utah. Toughest place to play. Not it. Tyson, is this Oregon team kind of changing the narrative and maybe healing some scars of Pac-12 past?
So are you trying to tell me that you don't think the Mariners are going to sign Ohtani this offseason? Are they going to like try to like slip in like a Russell Branyan or something like that?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. I'm just saying, put the football out there, Charlie Brown. We've been talking about that a lot today.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that's impressed me most about this team because, I mean, obviously we've talked for weeks about the talented players that they have and just the overall level of play, but it's just the consistency. And even in that Cal game, like I kind of loved that the first play of the game, everything hit the fan and all of a sudden Cal has the ball in Oregon's territory and the Ducks have to put up a bit of a fight. And then they still win 63-19, 62-19. Like that was an absolute blowout. And it was a team that was like, okay, like, we tripped a little bit, but like let's course correct. Let's get back on course right away. And like that's just the consistency of this group every single game. And you can even go back to Washington. I know they lost that game, but I still think that was a really, really well played football game. This team is the most consistent from like first quarter to fourth quarter, game in, game out that I think I've seen play for Oregon since I've been on the beat. And I mean, this entire season, maybe you can look at maybe like one or two quarters, probably just like in that Texas Tech game when they kind of fell back a little bit, where you're just like, yeah, they're probably not playing out their best. But other than that, like this is the one team that makes you kind of believe the cliches because like after the game, you hear them say stuff like, you know, it's every rep, it's every, you know, take a very, you know, just like all those sports cliches you hear. But then you see those cinematic recaps, and then you see the coaches preaching that on Fridays during their meetings, and it just kind of really feels like a theme, and it feels like this team's bought in, and yeah, like this is all setting up for a absolutely terrible loss in Tempe in 2 weeks. but but for the time being, it's been pretty impressive.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor was a friend of the program till he just, had to throw that in there. But I did take a shot at the Mariners. You know what? That one, I probably had that one coming. Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Tyson, let's get nuts, all right? Let's get a little crazy. And you have covered Oregon football for nearly a decade, and you were obviously there in 2014, and it is one of those things that, all right, we can talk about great football players, but Marcus is the best, right? A lot of good football players come through Oregon, but Marcus is the best, nicest, most humble. He's the best. Is Bo Nix having a better year than Marcus Mariota? I mean, can we start maybe having that conversation that Bo Nix might be having the greatest year in Oregon football history from the quarterback position? I know it's sacrilege to bring it up, but is Bo Nix maybe better than Marcus Mariota 2014?
It's a tough thing because it's tough to look at 2014 and be like, well, the game's different than it was then, because I remember in 2014 it felt like we were in the freaking future at that point too. So. Yeah. But the game has evolved, and Oregon is passing the ball so much more and so much more efficiently than Marcus did. And then when you do end up looking at the final stats at the end of the year, it's going to be pretty darn close. I don't think it's so outlandish to be comparing these two. That being said, I think there was just a little bit of a higher degree of difficulty on some of the stuff Marco was pulling off. It's so much different. Bo is succeeding so much with his brain and just muscle memory and just being so prepared. And Marcus would still just kind of do things every once in a while that would, like that play that Bo had last week where he limboed under the guy, threw it to his right as he was getting tackled. Marcus would pull off one or two of those a game. And I'm not saying that makes him a better quarterback, but I think just in my head, if, I'm trying to think 5 years from now, if I go back to think of Bo's senior year versus Marcus's senior year, I still think Marcus was a little bit better, but I think this Oregon offense is more complete than that one was. And a very large part of that is because of the way that Bo runs it. But I think that in 2014, Oregon's biggest strength was the fact that its quarterback could win you some games almost on his own. And in 2023, it's the quarterback can win you a lot of games, but it's through the whole complement. It's through the whole complement of that offense. Because I think Bo is essentially another coach out there. Is that a safe way to answer that question?
Yeah.
Did I do that right?
Yeah. You did it tremendous. Because the last thing we want is headlines like Tyson Alger agrees with Goofball radio host that Bo Nix is better than Marcus Mariota, and then subscribers just plummeting the subscribers.
It's crazy to talk about it though, because it's not outlandish, and I think this is something that we talked on our podcast last week, that there's still kind of a national Bo Nix bias out there of people who are still attached to his time at Auburn and saw plays that he made as a freshman or a sophomore. And I think that we also have a little bit of that too. And I think there's probably also a little bit of Marcus Mariota bias, because as we've talked, it's sacrilege to even compare any of these players against each other. But what Bo is doing this year is, if it's not as good as Marcus, I think this is the second best season in Oregon history by a quarterback. I think it's been that good.
You look at it right now, and obviously still a handful of games to play. Got 3 regular season games, maybe potentially a Pac-12 title game, bowl game, maybe a playoff game. A lot of games still left to be played. Bo Nix is sitting at 2,700 yards through the air, 25 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. And a rating of 180. Marcus, junior season 2014, 4,400 yards, 42 touchdowns to 4 picks, 180 again rating. So QB rating about the same. 42 to 4 touchdown interception. Bo's kind of on pace for that. I think. Yeah. 16 rushing touchdowns for Marcus that season. Bo wasn't obviously having a ton of rushing touchdowns. That helped with a couple of QB sneaks against. I don't think it's as crazy as we all just were. Like you said, we've kind of been indoctrinated to believe nope, Marcus, that's the best. And I think it's about time to maybe having that conversation.
Now the even bigger conversation is, could you have pulled Marcus Mariota in for a fourth year if NIL existed back then?
Oh, boy. Well, 100%. I think he 100% could, right? Because he would be Captain Swoosh for a senior season. Well, and the other thing, like, could you imagine Marcus Mariota with like 50-some starts in college football?
Yeah, no kidding. It's just thinking of quarterbacks. I had talked to Vernon Adams this week too, and about that USC game that he played 8 years ago where he threw 6 touchdowns on them. It's like I don't know how much better of quarterback play they could have actually gotten in 2015, assuming that Marcus would have been healthy the whole year. Because when Vernon was healthy, he was nails too. But the Ducks have had some pretty good quarterbacks for the last 9 years or so.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. I was talking with super producer Brendan. We were kind of projecting ahead at maybe some bowl matchups, and I realized I want Oregon to play in the college football playoff. I'm curious to see what happens with Oregon State the rest of the way out. Oregon State fans want them to play in the Pac-12 title game. But looking ahead to maybe some potential bowl matchups, how about Clemson and Oregon State in the Holiday Bowl? How about that matchup? Because it's a Pac-12 ACC matchup. Also, another one I was thinking of, Oregon, Alabama. Bo Nix' final college game is going to be against the Crimson Tide. You know, the team he grew up despising. And I don't know how we pulled this last one off, though, but we got to get USC Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. Like, that's got to happen, right?
That'd be so great. Maybe get 2 like interim coaches doing the pregame press media like they did when it was Cristobal and Bob Stoops.
Yeah.
I would love to watch Oregon State play Clemson.
That's got to happen.
I think Oregon State would annihilate them. I know Clemson has played a little bit better the last couple ever since Dabo called out the caller on his coach's radio show.
Tyler from Spartanburg. Tyler from Spartanburg's had a moment. He had a moment.
I'm honest to God, I think Oregon's the better team, but I'd put it at like 65% chance that the Ducks beat the Beavers in the final game of the year. Like I think Oregon State is, I think the number 12 ranking is apt. I think this is the best team that they've put together in easily more than a decade. And, you know, if it wasn't for just tripping up at Wazoo, like there could still be plenty on the table. But I think it's pretty darn incredible that here, considering everything that's going on with that university and the conferences, that they're sitting here at number 12 in the country. And like this it still doesn't quite feel like that. This is like the peak Oregon State roster and what Jonathan Smith's final product would be. But it's just kind of a shame that they're going to have to be playing with a completely different deck next year going into the next phase of this thing.
Oregon, USC this weekend, under the lights, late night kickoff. Ducks, I think last time I saw 16.5-point favorites in that game. Man, that is a lot of points, but it is going to be fascinating. Oregon State has got Stanford, and then a game against Washington that could be pretty big in Corvallis, maybe one of the biggest in Oregon State history, and all sorts of fantastic football for the next couple of weeks. Tyson, hey, thanks so much, bud. Have a terrific rest of the week. We'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
There you go. Tyson Alger, at Tyson Alger on the X app. Subscribe to the I-5 corridor. He's got a great story with Vernon Adams, kind of going back to that 2015 season. Again, not the greatest what if in Oregon football history, but top 5. Top 5 what ifs. What if Vernon Adams doesn't get hurt? Is that a 10-11 win season as opposed to a 9-win season? Does that give Mark Helfrich a little more credit in his back pocket going into 2016? Fascinating stuff. Always a pleasure hanging out with Tyson. You know, it's also a pleasure. ERCM Mailbag. That's next here on 620 Rip City Radio. be a Pac-12 championship game, maybe a college football playoff game, certainly a bowl game. But like looking at Bo Nix's season this year compared to Marcus Mariota's season this year, there is one stat that I think still gives Marcus the edge, because their quarterback rating is nearly identical. Yards, average, all of that stuff. But in 2014, Marcus Mariota accounted for 59 touchdowns. He accounted for 59 touchdowns. One receiving touchdown, 16 rushing touchdowns, 42 passing touchdowns. To just 4 interceptions, by the way. That's how you win a Heisman Trophy. You go 42 touchdowns to 4 interceptions.
And then you encapsulate it by doing the Heisman pose over a diving Oregon State defender in the 2014 Civil War. And you send Mike Riley to Nebraska.
All that stuff, yes. So
ask me if I remember that game.
Yeah, 50. That's 59 touchdowns he accounted for. 59. Bo Nix right now currently has accounted for 30. Now, that's a lot. And I did the math. If Bo Nix gets as many games as Marcus Mariota gets, he would have to score 5 touchdowns a game to get to that particular place.
Oh, I didn't even believe it when I looked it up, Justin. You remember how many touchdowns he had in that Civil War? Oh, my God. No wonder we were on to the next party by the third quarter of this game.
What do you have, like 6?
6.
Yeah.
4 passing, 2 rushing.
For Bo Nix to get
his moment.
For Bo Nix to get to the Marcus Mariota level, he'd have to play in a college football playoff, win a college football playoff game to get to 6th game, and he would have to score, on average, 4.5 touchdowns a game just to get to the. So, Bo's having a great year, and I think the conversation could still be it. And maybe he goes ballistic these last 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 games. Who knows?
I'll say this.
But
and one thing
that 2014 Mariota season. That's a lot of touchdowns.
It was ridiculous.
That's so many touchdowns.
It was so ridiculous. I'll say this as an Oregon State supporter, Justin, and why Oregon State fans, and maybe I'm not speaking for all of them, but for some of them, especially the ones in my family, the reason that they were nervous about that Oregon game from the second the schedule came out, and that's why, going back to what Tyson said, Oregon State just had to drop a game to Arizona and had to drop a game to Washington State. Otherwise, this game would have far different, implications potentially. But I'm convinced Bo Nix, I mean, again, Washington, he played an outstanding game there too.
Yeah.
But heading into this year, I knew that Bo Nix was going to have 2 games circled on his personal calendar. Washington and Oregon State. Particularly Oregon State because, Justin, we can sit here. Let's pull everything else out to the side. Does Oregon State win that game if Bo Nix is healthy and can turn the corner on Jaden Grant with an ankle?
Yeah, I don't believe so. But then again, I'm obviously a homer.
I think it's a debatable question. So it's like,
But here's the thing that Bo Nix and Dan Lanning and this Oregon team has done, and I kind of talked about it with Tyson. I'm with you. Washington, Oregon, circle those. I don't think these guys are circling games.
Maybe not.
They're just showing up and blowing the doors off of everybody since they lost to Washington, and it's like, watch out for the Cougs. It's always a kind of bit of a nope. Well, going to Rice Eccles, that's a tough place to. Nope. Cal, weather, tricky. Justin Wilcox, 63 points. Try again. So they have done an amazing job of bouncing back after that loss. All right, quickly, we got about 90 seconds to get a mailbag question, but let's get one in for fun.
It's time for the RCM mailbag. With any question, any topic, Justin can't duck the tough question. What do we have first?
Justin, last sports thing for the day, and I know this is a non-sports thing usually. I look up, and I hear about Robert Saleh talk about Zach Wilson. That's got to be the worst quote all year long.
Yeah, so asked why they haven't benched Zach Wilson, he said, I plead the fifth.
Yikes.
Is that what he says?
That makes you look like a really...
You got me. I'm going to plead the fifth on this. No.
That makes you look like such a coach that has no control. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not a Jets fan, nope.
But I guess he can't say the real answer. Which is the real answer is the moment that Aaron Rodgers popped his Achilles tendon, I
cooked.
thought our season was over. Turns out our defense is incredibly good, and they have kept us in way more games than we ever anticipated. I did not think this quarterback was going to be consequential at all because I thought we were on our way to losing about 13 games this year because our superstar quarterback that we acquired in the offseason played 4 games before he went down. Turns out our defense is a bunch of dogs that have kept us in games, and maybe, just maybe, if we get something different back there at quarter, but he can't say that.
The biggest what if, man, I'm telling you. Justin and I threw it out there probably about a month and a half ago now when the Vikings were 0-4, and we said, go get you some Kirk Cousins, and the Jets might be, So that's a butterfly
But Aaron
effect.
Rodgers says he still
I
thinks
heard
he might
about
come back.
that.
He might come back in a month.
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be insane?
Maybe he's fixing his Achilles in the darkness retreat. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty out there. We got 1 minute left, Justin. Let's get to let's get to one mailbag question today. Ooh, this is a good one. Would you rather give up social media or be popular enough to be an influencer?
Oh, I would give up social media.
Really?
I would. So let's put this in a quick. Let's just say the money I would get of being a popular influencer would say, hey, we'll give you the same amount of money to eliminate social media. I would eliminate it.
Say there's a significantly higher financial gain for you to be an influencer.
I don't have the bandwidth. I don't know if I could.
So if they came to you and said, Justin, we want you to, just hypothetical, we want you to tweet, we want you to quit your job.
Yeah.
And we want you to tweet about the Ducks every day.
And Graham
And we give you T-Swift reporter money, Justin.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
That
good
because
question.
it's the idea of being locked on my phone the entire time instead of being present in the world. That was a little deeper than you expected, but you know what? Welcome to the show. Thanks to Tyson Alger from the I-5 Quarter. Thanks to super producer Brendan. Thanks to all of you on YouTube and listening on the radio. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.